There are two elements that we need to close a deal. We need to know that the product works, and we need to know that the product working leads to value that's meaningful. Nobody cares if your product works if they're not already convinced that the product working matters. I don't need the rep to go in and talk about the nitty-gritty details of the product until we validated a problem we're solving. And then from a customer standpoint, they don't want to hear on a discovery call the laundry list of features that makes it work. They're not going to believe it anyway. They want to hear a proof point of a similar company or organization that solved the problem using that service. That then gives you a license to go prove it with deeper technical validation.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this leadership episode of 30 Minutes to President's Club. My name is Armand Farouk, and I'm here with my co-host, Mark Cosclo. And every once in a while, we get off an episode, and both Mark and I are like, dude, that was the one. Folks, this is the one. We've had him on before. His name is Kyle Asay. He's the VP of Global Growth Sales over at LaunchDarkly. And he has put together a masterclass on how to onboard reps quickly, despite the fact that he's selling one of the most complex products of all time. You would be foolish to stop listening right now. Mark, why should people listen?
Armand, what was that pork bun place you took me to in our little food tour?
We went to Meilaiwa in Chinatown in New York.
Best pork buns on the planet? This may be the best episode we've ever done. Listen, I think the thing that makes Kyle special is he takes big, extremely complex, complicated things, and he boils them down to just the absolute essence of it. He has so many, like, just these two, just these three. Of course, there's more nuance, but the things are so well done that I don't even know if you need to know the nuance. And he shares some of that today. And honestly, his ability to simplify the complex is on another planet.
Alrighty, Kyle, welcome back to the show. We start every leadership show with your top 3 actionable leadership takeaways. So let's get your 3.
Rapid onboarding. I've seen that reps that do really well long-term often start fast. And so we focus a lot on how quickly we can get people to their first conversation. We actually decreased our time to first sale by 49% with 3 focus areas. Number 1, knowing your territory, knowing exactly which account to spend time on first. Number 2, understanding your personas, what they care about, the problems they solve in their words. And then finally, knowing our stories. How can we tell the value of our solutions in a compelling story way that captures attention? If reps are armed with just that, they're able to go create meaningful conversations, loop in the right people, and we can win deals quickly, even without mastering all the other product pieces and other elements as you ramp.
So what's number 2?
Tip number 2 is having consistent North Star goals. I think a lot of leaders struggle with goal setting because they're always trying to pivot and find the next new thing to go after. And it creates this ongoing skepticism within the org of, well, what's going to happen next? And sometimes the goals can even conflict a little bit. So ever since I joined LaunchDarkly, we've only focused on 3 key goals. We focus on this quarter's revenue. We focus on this quarter's number of AE sourced opportunities, and we focus on next quarter's pipeline coverage. I like these goals because it's a mix of leading and lagging indicators, but they are all controllable. If you're 0 for 3 against these, you're not closing anything, you're not generating pipeline, next quarter looks terrible, your job's at risk. If you're 1 for 3, it's tough conversations. If you're 2 for 3, you're good to go. So what that means is even if you're struggling this quarter for revenue, if you're working hard, generating pipeline, and next quarter shaping up well, you're in great shape. Then if you're 3 for 3, I'm going to promote you as soon as I can. When we do build out sub-metrics or focus areas, they always point back to these, and the North Star metrics never change.
Consistently for 300 plus episodes, we've always had 3 takeaways, and I refuse to break that consistency today, Kyle. What is number 3?
Number 3 is all about how you can scale as a leader, go from front line to second line, go from regional to global. And a big piece of this is effective delegation. And so an exercise I'll invite you to do is to go audit your time and see what % of that time is spent on tasks that you are uniquely capable of executing compared to how much time you spend on tasks that people on your team or even cross-functional support could be helping with. An example from my career when I was getting close to front line to second line is I would always get added to calls. And it makes sense. Reps want help on calls. That's great. But I began asking, what is my specific role on this call? And if I didn't have a specific role to play that I was uniquely able to provide, I wouldn't join those calls. We didn't lose those deals. The reps could handle it, but it freed up my time to go spend more of it on things I was uniquely able to execute. And that led to our ability to grow rapidly as an org.
The simplicity of giving a rep 3 things that they know, if I can control these 3 things, Kyle's got my back and I'm going to go good. And if I can do 2 or just 1, kind of where am I? I think that level of simplicity is probably one reason why you're an amazing sales leader. That's the stuff that reps need. This rapid onboarding, super interesting. The thing that I missed though is product knowledge. And I think that's where like almost everybody starts. Like as soon as you log into your Gmail, the next thing you're doing is going in and learn about the product. It's not even on your top 3, man. You're having people have conversations without even talking about that. Like what's going on?
Yeah, and I think it's a miss for most orgs leading with products. Everybody's read the LinkedIn post, problems for product. Nobody cares about your products, about the problems that you solve. But we still have a very complex product at LaunchDarkly. When we get into product, we've got multiple like integrations, back end versus front end, different personas. If I wanted a rep to get good at our product before having conversations, they're not going to talk to anybody for 6 to 9 months, which isn't good. But the reality is I also have this massive supporting cast, an ecosystem, where if a rep can bring in a quality opportunity, we have SE support, we have mentors, we have sales leaders. We can go help bridge the gap of how the product actually works at a technical level, as long as they know the right people to talk to and the problems we solve and some stories to earn the time. We can surround sound them to go win. We had a rep come in and in her first couple of weeks, self-source a 6-figure opportunity. She had no idea what we do yet, but she was able to find a problem, bring in the right people, and close it, all while she's ramping because of the time to conversation, not being slowed down by needing to know every nitty-gritty feature in the product. I think a lot of AEs and leaders get this wrong. It's like, I'm not ready to talk to a customer until I know every feature. But what does your customer want to talk about? Every feature that you can scroll through on a demo? Or do they want to talk about their problems in their language, the outcomes that you drive in their language, and some level of evidence that you've helped somebody similar solve those problems? It's going to be the latter. And then hopefully you're at a company, and if you're not, you might be at the wrong company, that has plenty of people that know the product that can support you as you learn the product over time. So I don't want people to take this wrong. I'm not saying product knowledge isn't important. You should get good at your product. You should get great at your product, but it is not a prerequisite to talking to customers.
So your theory is that if we can get people talking about the problems in the context of their buyers and can tell customer stories and understand which accounts to target because they're the most ready to go, we get people quickly into deals. And then when they're in deals, their manager and their technical support team can guide them through a deal and they're learning along the way. But like you would much rather have that situation than somebody be able to like do a deal all by themselves, but it takes 9 months to get there.
Exactly.
What's the reasoning behind that? Like help me understand like why you've landed there. Cause I've never heard of anyone that doesn't teach product before the first conversation. I'm like, you got my curiosity peaked to the max.
Yeah, so I think there are 2 elements that we need to close a deal. We need to know that the product works, and we need to know that the product working leads to value that's meaningful. Okay, that's overly simplified, but most sales processes, most sales teams go about it in the wrong order. Nobody cares if your product works if they're not already convinced that the product working matters. It's why before we even go into a POV or a demo, I want to validate at the executive level, hey, if this actually worked, does it matter to you? Because otherwise, what's the point of technical validation? And so when I think about the problem aspect, I don't need the rep to go in and talk about the nitty-gritty details of the product until we validated the problem we're solving. And then from a customer standpoint, they don't want to hear on a discovery call the laundry list of features that makes it work. They're not going to believe it anyway. They want to hear a proof point of a similar company or organization that solved the problem using that service. That then gives you a license to go prove it with deeper technical validation.
So the first thing that you help them understand is how to assess their territory. And I'm assuming what that means is you get X number of accounts. Where should you get started, right? To get some quick wins. Tell me like the top 2, 3, or 4 points that you use that help somebody understand that and figure that out.
Yep. So we do a tiering system. We do tier A through C essentially. A tier A account is an account where you see multiple use cases for LaunchDarkly. What you're looking for us is you're looking at a lot of engineers. You're looking at a company that has an experimentation culture, so we can sell into product and engineering. And you're looking at companies that differentiate by how they ship software. That's a good sign as use cases for our product. Then I'm looking for the likelihood of budget, which my best proxy for that pre-conversation is, do they invest in similar areas to what we help with? So for example, if they're growing their engineering org, good sign they invest in improving software delivery. Do they invest in similar technologies like a competitor? A great sign that they invest in solutions like ours. We put those two things together. If a company has multiple use cases for LaunchDarkly and evidence of likelihood of budget, that's a tier A. If we're only confident in one of the two, that's a tier B. If we're confident in neither, that's a tier C. I want us to quickly validate tier A, B, and C as quickly as possible because I want my reps spending all their time on tier A accounts and almost no time on tier B and 0 time on tier C. We work a lot on the RevOps side using a lot of tools to get this close, but data is not perfect, so it still does require rep validation to go through and confirm those things. So it's one of the first exercises we teach them and ask them to do when they onboard at LaunchDarkly.
So obvious question, why even give them tier Cs? If you don't want them spending time, why even include that in there?
Yeah, so there are accounts that the data would suggest would probably be a tier A or a tier B, but the data might have been wrong. And so as they go, when they find out, okay, this is actually a tier C, and then we do have a process to go remove those accounts from reps book, validate that it is tier C, and never assign it again. Like most companies, we don't have perfect Salesforce data, so the developer count isn't always right, revenue is not always right. We have a lot of signals we pull in, but we may have accounts that look great with the data, and then actually, like the Builder AI, for example, looked like a great account until you realize that their software was actually a bunch of offshore devs, right? So that might have been a tier A based on the data, but when a rep looks it up, bankruptcy, okay, that's definitely a tier C.
I love how you think about it. And I love this kind of like tier C really is, we think that there might be something there, but the data isn't really convincing us. And you can do a little work on your own to figure that out. And if you find out it's bad, get rid of it. If you find out it's good, let's move it up and start working. And I think that gives a rep like things to hunt for, which is awesome. Now, how do you tell a rep to find something like experimentation culture? Like how is that like that seems like a very qualitative thing. Like how would you figure that out?
It's often industry-based for us. So organizations that are B2B2C or B2C, they're probably going to be experimenting. Anybody that has the need to have higher conversion through app or through website, probably experimentation. And so there I'm looking a little bit at the industry itself and then how the company goes to market. And so we can pull data again on that through proxy by industry, but who has looked at an account in Salesforce that was labeled an industry? And then you look at the upside, you're like, nah, that's not it. Well, it requires an additional layer of inspection at the rep level to confirm.
Love that.
Kyle, this is a big slap in the face for me because I remember now that I had a bunch of reps. His name was Cole, one of the best reps I had. And Cole was notorious for closing C-tier accounts, and he would always complain about all of the C's in his book. And then everyone else would look at his C's and be like, dude, these are A's. The reason that happened is because when I was selling compensation software at Pave, there were a lot of different triggers that would lead you to believe that an account was good. I found it really hard to simplify the tiering criteria into 3 things to look for. So I guess my question for you is like, if I'm in that position, my guess is there are other triggers that you considered putting on this list that didn't make the cut. Are those just outside of tiering entirely, or how do you guide your reps to think about those other triggers in the context of tiering?
So we use lots of triggers when it comes to going from our 30 tier A accounts to what accounts am I going to focus on this next week in our PG plan, right? And so we're pulling in signals for intent data. We're pulling in contacts moving roles. We're looking at former users, all those things. Like I'm not going to get into too many details on that because we have a pretty good system that works very well for us. But we do look at a lot of different signals to prioritize what should I focus on this week. So my philosophy on accounts is a good account is a good account. Just because you called into them for 3 months and nobody answered does not make a good account a bad account. It's still a good account. But
Preach, brother, preach.
what accounts we're going to focus on this week will be different based on some of those sub signals. But from the rep level, getting that initial prioritization sets the foundation. Because I expect every rep, you should know, what are your top 20 accounts in your book? For every one of my leaders, what are the top 30 accounts across your entire team? Because if you're not going to be a good steward of your best accounts, I'm going to find somebody that will be. So I look at those, Armand, in 2 different layers: tiering and then short-term focus for PG planning. And a lot of signals go into the latter.
Of all of the criteria that you go into tiering, what % are concrete, yes, no, binary, we trust this data? And what % is, we think we're directionally accurate, but like a little rep, verification really goes a long way. Like, can you give us like some ballparks there? Because I think people that want to copy this are going to feel right away, 90%, I don't even know is true. Maybe that's what you're experiencing. I don't know, but I'm interested to hear like what you might think that is.
So at the individual data level, I would say I am 30% confident in any given point always being accurate. At the aggregate level, if I say based on all of our data sources, this is a good account, we're going to be about 70% accurate. We have a lot of different things to look at for these, right? But even then, like, this is why I tell reps, my job and RevOps jobs is to balance territory at scale. It's not our job to completely tell you where you should spend all of your time. Okay, you need to own your territory. So I still have reps, even though we have all this scoring, all this tooling, look at every one of your accounts one by one, tier it, because the data we have might be off, and you don't want to miss 30% of your best accounts because our data hit rate led us to get it 70% right.
Let's go to personas. I'm interested to know, so you probably have 5, 6, 7 personas. Do you do the traditional persona card? Like, here's Armand Farouk. He's a founder of a media company. He has these common problems. These are the things that his day looks like. These are the jobs to be done. Is it like a card like that you're having people look at and memorize? Or have you figured out a different way to help people understand their personas?
We have the persona cards. I have found that here, like many places, they're a little bit exaggerated for effect. And so my favorite way that we've done the persona training is we literally have the personas at LaunchDarkly doing the job, teach the sellers, hey, this is how I do the job. These are my pain points.
Yep.
This is how I use LaunchDarkly. This is why it's valuable to me. Whenever I can get an actual practitioner, an actual persona teaching me what they care about in their words, that's much more impactful than anything I can put together on a card with enablement. As good as our intentions are, we're really good as sellers and in enablement and in marketing to take persona language and transform it into what we think our persona's language should be. And I don't want sellers using that. I want sellers using our persona's language. And so we're also pretty good at sharing out when we have cold call transcripts. Here's how they define this problem. Here's a transcript team. Read this. We have our PG win channel. Whenever we set a meeting, we're sharing what was said to the prospect, what the prospect said back. That helps us get a really good understanding of what resonates that we say and how do personas actually define their problems. Reps believe it a lot more than that generic persona card that most companies use.
What happens at the end of this thing? So week 1, again, they know 3 things. Number 1, they know the companies they should be reaching out to, the personas, and then we didn't get into stories, but you're giving them some example stories that they can tell about the product and how you can solve the problems and whatnot. Are they literally taking calls at the end of the first week? And if so, how do you do that without having them completely go hog wild?
Yeah, they're beginning to PG within their first couple of weeks of starting. And I do want them to go a little bit hog wild in their right accounts. And people will say, well, why would you want them calling their best accounts when they don't know anything? It's because if they screw up massively on a cold call, it doesn't matter. They can call that same person back next month. They're not going to remember. It's okay. Yeah. The sooner I see reps fall on their face and make big mistakes, the sooner I'm excited. It's like, look, let's go learn that way. That's much better than watching that Minds Tickle video for the 3rd time on objection handling, right? And so, yes, I don't want to go in hog wild because of structure. It's the right accounts. I do want them to understand personas well enough to at least have a somewhat value-based conversation. But the reps that take weeks before having the first conversation because they're not ready yet tends to never get ready. They never get confident. And then you fast forward 6 months, 9 months, they're still not ready for whatever the next step in development is. There's a very strong correlation for me for rep success based on how much activity they have, how many times they fail in their first few weeks on the sales floor.
Do you have a certification process? Does the manager say, hey, they're ready? Is it just like, hey, whether ready or not, here we come, make your calls today? Like, how are you, like, where does the learning end and the action start? And how do you know if somebody's ready or not?
Yeah, we have all sorts of certifications as they go. And they're beginning to make these calls before they're fully certified in these things. But like at our new hire boot camp, we talked about storytelling, how to tell stories effectively. Then we certified that. Our product, we have certification levels. A lot of reps and leaders fall into this trap of, I can't go talk to a customer. I don't yet have my level 3C certification. Your customer doesn't care what certifications you have. They care, do you understand their world at all? Can you portray to them a better world? And is there evidence you can get them there that is credible enough to justify more time with you? Because we all know what happens. You get a real meeting, a real opportunity. You bring in your manager. You bring in the SE. You're emailing me. Everybody's getting involved to help you. You don't need to be fully certified. But yeah, I want to be super clear. I'm not expecting reps to be great at anything after their first 6 months, much less their first week. Right? I just really want people to think beyond the standard, master the product, master the personas, memorize our value framework from command to the message, every single letter on those cards, and then I can begin to generate pipeline. No, especially using AI, for example, like I can generate a really strong point of view for a contact or an account in 13 seconds. And a rep can be prepared to go talk to that and handle a couple of questions from the prospect on it. There's no reason for extended onboarding and delay. But as we go through, we do have multiple levels of certification for sales process, for product, for personas. But those are ongoing gates, never a culmination, never a you're done. I'm a big believer that coaching development is a never-ending approach.
So let's go through the final step in onboarding because I skipped it. So you have know your territory, know your personas, and know your stories. You talked about a story certification. Talk me through if I'm a sales leader and I want to teach my reps how to tell stories without going too deep into the product.
Yeah,
how do you train that?
We brought in one of our awesome customer marketers, and she taught us the foundation of good storytelling, how you portray the before state and the after state, how you bridge those things, how you make the customer the hero in the story. And so we got good at the framework, and then we looked at how we built our customer stories to follow that framework to enable our reps to go tell those stories. And you don't need to have every story memorized, but when I look at our PG plan, for every account on our PG plan, one of the fields I have the reps fill out ahead of time is what relevant customer story or what relevant customer stories do you want to use if you get them on the phone? So if I'm a brand new rep, I've got my accounts tiered. I know how to build a PG plan. I know how to use AI to go build out the PG plan quickly with an account point of view. And I know how to tell good customer stories. Now I'm going to go look at the website. I'm going to find a customer story that's most relevant. I'm going to use our internal AI tool to pull a developed customer story. Now I am ready to go. If they land on the phone, notice you're solving this problem. Is that accurate? Customer story that's relevant. And they're rolling. I think the story piece is actually one of the more simple ones because once you know the framework we're telling the story and you copy paste in the stories, you have it in your call notes, you're good to go.
How do you organize these different stories? So I'm wondering, like, if I wanted to start building my story bank, are you saying, like, if a company has this problem, tell this story? Is it by industry? Is it by persona? If I wanted to build my minimum viable story bank for my reps, how do I do it?
And so you want to have different labels for each industry and problem. My philosophy on stories is the ideal story is same size company, the same problem, in the same industry. And that almost never happens. I know we're always asking for more case studies, but that ideal story just almost never happens. The next best is going to be similar size and similar problem. I think similar problem is more important than similar industry. I think size is really important because when you compare a massive Fortune 500 to a startup, you lose credibility. And then I think the next best layer is the same problem. I think problem is the one you have to get. So if you're going to organize by one variable, do problem. But I also recommend layering in size and industry, because if you can get 3 for 3, you're ideal. 2 for 3, you're pretty good, but at least get the same problem and you can tell a good story.
Are these stories all customer marketing created, like videos, case studies, and whatever? Or are they like, hey, we had a rep sit down, did a little 10-minute interview about them, and now we got this story as a transcript somewhere?
Yeah, all of the above. And I think the really good reps learn their own stories over time from the customers that they sell, and then we'll have them work lookalike accounts so we can nail the same industry, same problem, right? But we also do a really good job. Like we just had a rep uncover some incredible insights on a cold call about one of our competitors. And so we got all those stories. Here's the problem I'm having. Here's where I articulate it. Here's my pain point. Immediately share that across the org. So now when a rep is on a call and they hear, oh, we're using this competitor, they now have that story ready to go from that sharing. Because if you're a seller and you're waiting for customer marketing to publish those awesome high reduction stories before you use it, your number of stories is going to be pretty limited. Be a bit more self-sufficient than that.
I'm on a call. I get some juicy thing about a competitor. I feel like it's true. What do I do next so that my whole team can benefit from that?
He sent it to his leader sent it to me. I sent it to everybody.
Well, dude,
Maybe it's that simple sometimes.
and that helps for, like, in the moment sharing, but then I also shared it with our head of competitive insights. We can go actually organize it, put it in our documentation so it is referenceable in the future. But really, like we one of the pieces of the culture I want to build is we celebrate wins together, but we also share how we win together so we all get better. And so we built a really good culture. If I have a great call, I share it. If I said a meeting, I share it. Here's how, and it's not, I said a meeting, here's who it was with, here's how I said it, here's the objection they gave me, and here's a link to the call recordings. You can listen to it if you want to listen to it. And everybody's doing that now at a pretty good frequency, which, by the way, going back to the rapid onboarding, when they say, well, what calls should I listen to understand what works? Just go look in the Slack channel, look at the last 2 weeks. You're going to find tons of evidence of messaging that actually works.
Kyle, amazing show. We have to move to the final segment, and the final segment is the final 4, where I'm going to ask you 4 rapid fire questions, and the goal is to answer them as quick off the cuff as you can. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, number 1, what's your number 1 interview question?
Inside or out of work, what are you most proud of? I'm looking for evidence of great accomplishments, because great people do great things.
Number 2, what is the number 1 culture killer on a sales floor?
I would say having an external locus of control. When your entire org is saying we're not having success because of marketing or because of SGR or because of product, you have a losing culture. When reps are thinking about what they can control to win, that's a winning culture.
That's good. That's What is the number 1 thing you can do to earn your team's respect?
Teach them something or implement something that leads to them making money. If you do that, you have their attention, you have their respect.
And then number 4, what is the number 1 way to get promoted to sales leader?
Show evidence that what you do is repeatable. It can be replicated.
Dude, you have given us a repeatable process for onboarding reps. This has been one heck of an episode. I'm literally going to put together a write-up on this because it was so good. Everyone hang on for a 60-second recap coming up soon. Alrighty, Mark, it's time for a 3-step recap and 1 thing you should do. And these are all going to be related to onboarding. So step number 1, you got to know your territory. Give your reps a simple framework to understand what is an A, B, or C tier account. So Kyle gave us the framework of the 3 things he was looking for. An A tier account has 2 of those things. A B tier account has 1 of those things. And then a C tier account has none of those things. Do not have a million things in your tiering matrix. You can use triggers for that to prioritize within your A tiers, but keep it simple. That's 1. Step 2, when you're teaching your reps the persona they should be going after, use the persona in your organization to run the training. So if you're selling to engineers, have your CTO run the training. If you're selling to CFOs, have your CFO run the training. Try to get the day in the life from the actual human being, not from a product or a sales perspective. And then lastly, number 3, stories. You got to know your stories. So the best stories are similar size, problem, and industry to the customer. Second best are similar size and problem. And then if you don't have those, at least try to match for the same problem. All right, Mark, what's 1 thing people should do right now?
I think one of the coolest things that Kyle does is we all have like that boom email or that Slack thing that goes out that celebrates something, but very rarely do we say how that happened. And what happens is a lot of times it's good. Everybody loves celebrating that kind of stuff, except for if you're the person who never gets on there and you're wondering all the time, how are these people doing this stuff? And I think what I would do right now is I would amend your email for congratulations or your Slack channel or whatever you do and make a requirement to post something on there. Be, how did I do it? Who was the person I talked to? What was the language that worked? What was the objection I overcame? What was the line that I used? What was the feature that I showed? Whatever it is. But like, I would immediately amend whatever, channel you have to celebrate wins to include the how.
Well, folks, if you liked what you got from this episode, then I've got a couple different things for you. Number one, please go connect with Kyle on LinkedIn. Mark said it in the debrief, but he's one of the few people where literally Mark was like, I stop every time I see your name in the feed, and I literally read line by line everything you say around sales leadership. It is just damn good content. So go check out Kyle on LinkedIn. We'll put a link to his LinkedIn in the show notes. Also, he puts out some amazing courses and content over at salesintroverts.com. So go check that out as well. And then lastly, he's actually been on a couple episodes with us in the past. And in a previous episode, he put together a toolkit that documents all of Kyle AC's sales coaching competencies. So the different areas he uses to coach his reps. There's a link to download that in the show notes as well if you want to learn more about how to be and coach and lead like Kyle AC. Alrighty, folks, we will see you on the next one.